Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have the genre book tag. I was tagged by Emily of Novel Novels and I'm not sure who the original tag creator was, but I will find out and leave a link in the description. So I believe with the genre book tag, I pick a genre and then I answer questions based on that genre and my opinions. So without further ado, let's begin. I should probably say what genre I have chosen. I have chosen to go with the fantasy genre for this one. I think that's pretty predictable. I was either going to choose fantasy or crime. What is your favourite standalone book? Whilst I could have chosen anything by Neil Gaiman, I chose to go with Neverwhere. Basically, this guy called Richard Mayhew finds something like another London. It had that weird blend of absurdity that I have come to expect from Neil Gaiman. This one is the one that I would recommend for anyone starting out with Gaiman. What is your favourite series? The Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. I first read this series when Sam of Sam's Nonsense hosted the Hobbalong way back in 2016, and this series has stuck with me since then. It's the one I hold above all others. Before this, I had only said that the Song of Ice and Fire series was my favourite series simply because of the breadth of that world. And then I read the Live Ship Traders trilogy. These characters go on journeys that I didn't expect, and a story that wasn't the typical fantasy story that I had come to expect from the genre. It wasn't just this family saga, it was a family saga that ended up involving the entire world, and the character of Malta is one that I never thought I'd end up calling my favourite character in fiction, but due to her journey within these books, she went from being one of my most hated to my most loved characters that I have ever read, and I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe how Robin Hobb wrote this. Questions 3 and 4 are: what is a trope you like in this genre and what is a trope you don't like in this genre? And I mention them together because it's a trope that I need to mention this book for. And it is the fight between good and evil. The fight between good and evil is something that I think can be done exceptionally well, or it can be incredibly tropey and bad with nothing new added to the genre. What I like with the battle for good and evil is when good characters end up doing morally grey things or evil things for the greater good. Similarly, I like how evil characters can be that well-rounded that you can understand where they're coming from, and whilst you don't possibly support them, you end up liking their characters simply because you can understand them. And I think with the battle with good and evil, you can have writers who just want to give you that stereotypical story that has no nuance behind it. The characters are all one note. You either have the very, very good person who is protective over everyone, they're never mean to anybody. If they see somebody being bullied, then they've just got to stand up for that. They've never bullied anyone in their life, they've never said a bad word to anybody, and they're an upstanding individual, usually blonde. The evil person is usually powerful, always wanting more power and seeking to get that. I'm holding up Ship of Magic from the Live Ship Traders trilogy because this book has villains in it, and yet those villains you can understand. For 3 books with one certain character who is incredibly villainous, he actually ends up fighting against another villain from the series. And this series is full of not good or bad characters, but characters that always fall into the middle of that. And there is this huge grey area that these characters inhabit because they are all doing things for certain reasons. It all makes perfect sense. And so this does have a battle between good and evil in it, but there is something within the final book where you begin to question whether what all these people's actions were, whether everything they had done wasn't actually had some underlying villainy in it, but they were still good characters. Next, we have a disappointing book in this genre, Crown Conspiracy by Michael J. Sullivan. I looked forward to the Rhaeria revelations for years, and unfortunately I didn't end up liking it as much as I thought I would do. If we're taking context into the situation here, I understand perfectly what the writer was getting at. I understand why they chose to write the book in the simplistic fashion that they did, but I did not end up liking this for the most part. I found it incredibly basic in terms of the plot of good and evil. This was very cookie cutter, good and evil plot, just thrown on the page. Most people will find this a quick read. It's incredibly tropey fantasy, and I just did not enjoy it for that reason. What I should say is I don't think that tropes are a bad thing in any sort of fiction. They're the kind of centre points that people are looking for when it comes to reading. Like, certain readers will want this very tropey, somewhat cliche fiction. That's what they want to read. It's the reason certain people read Mills and Boon books, because they know that the books are reliable, they're always going to follow a certain pattern. And I get that. I have no problem with that. They're just not for me. A book on your TBR that you want to get to soon. Crownbreaker by Sebastien de Castell, the 6th and final book in the Spellslinger series. Queenslayer, the previous book, ended up being my favourite book of the series so far. This one is the longest book of the series, but I know that if it's anything like the others, it will be an incredibly quick read. And I didn't like this series at first, but over time, I can't help but look forward to rereading it and seeing all of the different cogs going in motion once I've seen the story in its entirety. An intimidating book or series. And for this, I have gone with the Realm of the Elderling series, again by Robin Hobb, because this book is the first book from the Farseer trilogy, Assassin's Apprentice, and this is the book that sets it all off. There are 4 trilogies in this series and 1 quartet, and you don't have to read them in order, but you have to have read the Farseer trilogy before you read the Toyman trilogy and before you read the Fitz and the Fool series. If you read the Liveship Traders trilogy and the Rainwell's Chronicles, then eventually all of the books they feed into one another and there are Easter eggs in each one. It's a great expanded universe. Bookkeep and this book reminded me of the first time I read Harry Potter, in that I had that same childlike wonder and awe that Robin Hobb had been able to create and craft such an incredible world. I adore the entire 16-book series, The Realm of the Elderlings, but that is exactly why it's intimidating, because of the length of the series. Whilst I believe that it's fulfilling to read all of these books, I can understand why certain people don't and don't want to give them the time of day. Also, the thing is, whilst I enjoyed this book and how literary Robin Hobb's writing is, I do know other readers who have struggled to get through this book. Robin Hobb does lack brevity in places. I was astonished by the concision within this book, and that all goes out of the window with the next book. Royal Assassin, though, is quite a fast read. Assassin's Quest is where it slows you down, and I think that shift in tone can be difficult for other readers. I got into this series because of Sam's nonsense with the Hobbalong way back when, but I do believe that Becca of Becca and the Books is holding her own read along of the entire series this year. I think they have done Assassin's Apprentice. They might be doing Royal Assassin now. I'm not sure about it all. I'll find out and leave links. And that is called The Elderling Along, which is a bloody mouthful, I won't lie. What is another genre you want to read more of? That's just crime. I like crime fiction. I released a crime novel back in February. It's my next go-to genre after fantasy. What is a genre that intimidates you the most? I'd say science fiction. I can read fantasy and usually get behind the stuff in there, but I find with science fiction there has to be a bit of a knowledge of science, and sometimes I just end up, for whatever reason, despite enjoying watching science fiction programs, when I'm reading it, I don't seem to be able to suspend my belief as much as I can when I'm watching it. And there's so much with science fiction, I'm not sure what sort of genre I'd like, what sort of subgenres. I don't know what sort of thing I want to read. I don't know whether it have the pace that I look for in that sort of thing. I feel like there'd be a lot of heavy world building, and yeah, so science fiction. Next, I'm supposed to tag some people. Do I have to tag anybody? What I'm going to say is, today, for the first time in a very long time, is that if you want to do this tag, then tell me in the comments and I'll tag you in the comments. There we go. Them's me answers. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.